Alright, I'm a push rod length checking. So, well, since I'm at the table, I'll just show you what this side is. What I did, I went and bought 2 of these squares right here, and I got this set on 9.5 inches, which is what my push rod. Okay, I'm going to stop right here and correct myself because I said this 18 times wrong. I set the scale on the left, the little block right there, at 2 inches because it had to have enough grip right there. So my push rod is 7.5 inches long, so the other one is at 9.5. And like I said, for 18 times I said my push rod length was 9.5 when it's 7.5. All right, let's get back to it. So that's super close right there, and I've kind of checked these to verify that. All right, so I know I got a 9.5. That's what stock calls for. These are stock replacement push rods. All right, so there we are on that part. The other thing that I did while I was up here, well, I tried to do this method over on the engine to check what I'm about to show you, and there's way too much aluminum over there. I can't get a good base on there. So I want to know how far down this lifter pushes in, right? So if it's a hydraulic lifter, so we can see there's a gap in there. So to measure the gap, I just took my caliper and, measured down right there with the little leg. You can see the leg that comes out. I measured down to that lip. Touch the screen, make sure we're focused. That lip right there. Right here. Then I carefully drop the push rod because, it's kind of a two-hand thing to do what I'm doing, and they're oily. I pushed that down as much as I could, then took my other hand and ran this down to see what the distance was. I zeroed it out up there too, right? So I'll come up with about 170 thousandths is how far down that plunger goes. I'm going somewhere with it. Okay, let's go over here and see what I've did on the truck side, on the engine side over here. So, I just happen to be pretty much on top dead center, a hair past, right? You can look down in there, you might not be able to read that. We're a hair past, so I'm either on the exhaust stroke or compression. I just happen to be on compression stroke. I threw 2 push rods in here. This one on the intake, which is closed in either case. I got a lot of slop in there. Put my adjustable one in there and tighten it up. I can barely turn it right. No slack in it. Right, and then got a little bit of slack. I'll have to go back and redo that because I'm monkeying with it to show you something. But anyways, I set that up to what zero lash would be, so that's what the push rod length should be. These stock replacement push rods on this stock setup, which is a stock length, is entirely too short, because that should be preloaded, and that's not even zero lash. Okay, back to the numbers. So if I got 170 thousandths of how far down that lifter goes, I want to set it kind of in the middle, which would be about 85 thousandths, right? And of course, there's all kinds of arguments on how to set that and everything. But this is on Hughes Engine's website. What's that say right there? 80 to 95, and that's the number that I come up with my little home, not accurate to machinist standards method right there. So that's one way you can kind of check that. So I can play around now. I know that I need to get that other push rod out, try to get a length on it, and I need to add, according to them, about 80 thousandths lift to set it to what they're calling for right there. So the next trick is to we'll go back and reset my zero lash on that push rod and come over here and measure that and see what I come up with. Now this method differs a little bit from what you see on other videos because look at that push rod. It ain't got a hole in it, right? So that's why I'm saying, hey, absolute length, and whatever the difference is, try to add to it, right? That's how I'm going to go about it. Then I know these are 9.5s. Whatever number I come up with that other one, how much longer that I need to go, I can add that to this if I were to buy longer push rods. Okay, caveat to what I just said. I'll see if we can show this. On the skinny side of the shop, and I got stuff in the way. Going to show you that gap. Last one there. I'm using 2 hands, so kind of hard for me to do that. But there's a gap on there, and what I did, I figured out this one right here was my shortest, and this one was about average. Whenever I did this, it really wasn't sitting any lower. It's super close. So this was best case scenario with the longest one with that stock push rod, and it was still too short. And then that's worst case scenario on that push rod right there. So we're going to see what we got there, and let me think on that, because I need to be somewhere in between with a non-adjustable rocker. I need to be in between that length and that length for 0 lash. Actually, I need to be a little longer than that one because that one had slack in it, which I don't know how much slack was in there. So, I can figure out how much slack, because I can run the same test and put that one over there and run it again and then see what the difference between those two are, and that's how much longer push rod I need for 0 lash. Add the 80 or 60 or whatever one add to it, and voila, if I were to buy push rods, that's the lengths I need to get. Okay, I'm setting this scale up for the adjustable push rod for the length that I found on that exhaust valve. And what I'm going to do is adjust it to that length, and then I'll drop in the factory push rod, which I know the length of, and I'll see the gap in there, and I'll just measure what the gap is with a filler gauge. Looks like the stock one is about 30 thousandths short. Okay, I did this for both the intake and the exhaust. The intake was only 14 thousandths shy of getting to 0 lash. I'm going to take the difference between the two, the range over there, which is 16 thousandths. Okay, my range was 16. I'm going to take half of that and then add my short push rod there, or long push rod there, the 14 thousandths to that. What this does, it gives me the average that I need to add to these to get the 0 lash. Okay, I just did an average. That's all I did there. So what I'm going to do is take that number, the 22 thousandths, and if I wanted 80 thousandths preload, I would add 22 thousandths to that. If I want 40 thousandths preload, then I'd add 22 thousandths to that. So that just gives me an average, because not all the rockers or the valve stems are set up the same. That's all that's doing. Okay. So I know what push rod I would like to get. I'm going to run those right there, the factory length ones, because I know it'll work, right? Is it optimized? That's a different story. What I found was a 50 thousandths longer push rod. So that gets me worst case scenario plus 20 preload, best case scenario 36 thousandths preload, which is better than the, well, like no preload at all. Like needing to be longer to even have preload. So that'll be a good step. This application really needs, to dial that in just a little better, is an adjustable rocker. But I'm going to run this on those rockers and, well, see where we're at. If I get a set of adjustable rockers, I can redo this game and set the rocker exactly where I want it to be for the wipe and all that, and I may have to do different set of push rods again, or the stock ones may work, but that's going to be a little testing thing that I'm going to do. I can now assemble this because I know where I'm at. I got my numbers. I've essentially blueprinted where it's at, and we're going to run it.